It's not fresh. It's not real. Get out of my face. And I might cry a little bit. I don't know if I'm ready for it, but it'll be interesting to say the least. Just take a breath. Come on. Take a breath. Hey besties, it's Sarah. Welcome back to my channel. And today I'm going to be doing a trend that I've been seeing around. I think the first person I ever saw do this was Kat from Paperback Dreams. And since then, a lot of booktubers have done this. But essentially what I'm going to be doing is reading 1-star reviews of my very favorite books in this world. I am asking for my feelings to get hurt on this day. Before we get into reading these 1-star reviews, I do want to interrupt to say that this video is being sponsored by our lovely friends at Book of the Month. If you haven't heard of Book of the Month, it is a book subscription service for readers like you and I. Essentially what their team does is every month they curate 5 to 7 new and early release titles for you to choose from. You have a credit and you get to pick a book and it's a good time. You just basically get to read new books, get a hardcover for an amazing price. It's a whole lot of fun and it saves you a lot of time in figuring out what your next read is. Book of the Month very kindly sent me their June books. The one that I'm the most excited for is Things We Do in the Dark by Jennifer Hilner. This is a thriller about a woman who is arrested when she's found covered in blood in her bathtub with a razor blade, and her husband, who is a celebrity, is dead beside her. So because her husband is famous, there's a lot of media attention on this, and she's very afraid because not only is she going to be convicted of this murder, she is also hiding a very dark past. And I just really love all of Book of the Month's selection. They always have great books for you to choose from. And one other thing that they really wanted me to tell you guys about is that they are launching a podcast. Book of the Month's new podcast is called The Virtual Book Tour. It's being hosted by 2 members of their editorial team. Essentially what they're doing is they're interviewing authors and kind of getting into their minds and finding a lot more about their writing and their wisdom and little anecdotes. And so it's a lot of fun. It's already charting on both Apple and Spotify. So if you want to listen and subscribe and you love reading and you love the books that Book of the Month is putting out, I definitely recommend it. If you are interested in getting your first Book of the Month book for $9.99, you can use the code SUMMER and you can choose from one of these lovely selection for June. And if you don't like this month's selection, you can always wait till next month or you can skip a month. They are very flexible in how the membership works. And I am a member actually myself. And so the last 2 months I actually skipped because they've been sending me the books. But I have had other months where I paid, and I really love Book of the Month. I just think it's a really great subscription service. And I think their new podcast sounds really fun. So if you're interested, you should check it out, and more information down below in the description. Before we get into me reading these reviews, I do want to say that if I happen to read your review and I tease you a little bit about it, this is all jokes. Like, I am not trying to intentionally insult someone's opinion. I think that I've given many books 1 star that other people love, so I'm sure that you could read my reviews and do the same exact thing if I hated one of your favorite books. So I just want to get that out of the way, that if I am like referring to your name and kind of joking around, like, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, and you're lovely, and that's fine. All right, let's just get into hurting my feelings. We're to come in really strong with The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This is a very well-loved book by many people, not just BookTube, but I think Book Talk, random people on the street. Like, people love The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. It's been picked up for a TV show. It's gotten a lot of buzz. This is the book, in my opinion, that put Taylor Jenkins Reid on the map. Like, she already was kind of popular among, you know, older, like, romance readers, I feel. But once she put this book out, we all were like, okay, Miss TJR, I will pay attention. And so I think it'd be very interesting to see the people that don't like this, because it is mostly rated really highly. I actually went on Goodreads and I'm looking at how many ratings it has for each star, and so there's only about 7,000 1 stars and there are over 68,000 5 stars. So it feels like the people who don't like this are in the minority. So I'm very curious to see what they have to say about why they don't like this book. So the first person we have is Miss Kelly Nina. She said, well, I never thought I'd see the day where I didn't fall in love with the TJR book, but here we are. I'm sure I'll be the black sheep on this and I'll never understand why. I hated this book, and I say that very, very infrequently. I hated every single character with the exception of maybe one, but even he turned out to be a huge disappointment eventually. The plot was both simplistic, yet beyond difficult to believe. Contrived and cookie cutter are also words that come to mind and will only make sense if you read it. No spoilers here. How is this cookie cutter? I'm not saying like it's revolutionary. I'm not saying that no one's ever told a story about old Hollywood. Tell me the books that are like Evelyn Hugo and maybe we can talk, because I'm very confused about what about this would make Evelyn Hugo cookie cutter. It's not clicking. It's not clicking. One major plot point had me eye rolling so hard I was convinced I would have a stroke. Kelly, take a breath. Just take a breath. Come on. Take a breath. I also really disliked the main romance. I felt there was a huge double standard in how this relationship was portrayed based on genders of the characters involved. I get that. I get what she's saying because the book is about a bi character, and while Evelyn is married to like men, she does have a relationship with a woman, and so there is some like cheating involved, and I get why that would like upset you, you know, if that was happening and, you know, we're gonna look at like a man or a woman cheating in a hetero relationship and like frown on it. But I think that she's like missing the point of Evelyn Hugo, because Evelyn Hugo is not about a perfect character. Like Evelyn is objectively like acts bad sometimes. Like she even says that. It's like she uses people to become famous, and she literally says that in the book. So I feel like Miss Kelly was not like picking up on that. So maybe it's just like not for her. Maybe she doesn't like those kind of characters. Okay, I was only gonna read one review per book, but I just saw another one for Evelyn Hugo that I thought was too funny, so I want to read it. So Corinne said, wow, that was awful. The content is of the supermarket tabloid variety, and the writer lacks all subtlety and grace. She might as well have beaten you over the head with a mallet as to introduce her themes. The book is the stuff that gives chick lit a bad name. I don't think that Taylor Jenkins Reid really wanted this to stop at like being like chick lit genre. Like I think she meant for this to be bigger than that. Not to say there's anything wrong with chick lit, but I kind of find that genre title to be like kind of outdated, because these days I feel like you can write a book intended for women that have so many more themes, and I really disagree. Like I understand her saying it's of the tabloid variety because it is about like celebrity drama, but maybe you just shouldn't pick up a book that you know is about that if you don't like that. I don't know. That's my opinion. I think that that's very funny the way she wrote that. She's obviously very well spoken. I'm so sorry you felt that way, Corinne. Very sorry. The next book I have is another one that is very highly rated by many people, but it's a little more controversial. Like I feel like there's more people that feel differently about this book, and that is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. Emily Henry in general is a very popular romance author. Like her last 3 books have been read pretty much by everyone on BookTube and Book Talk if you like romance books. But something I found recently is that she's not as like widely just like hands down everyone loves her as I thought she was. For me, Emily Henry is the gold standard for romance novels, but I actually posted a video recently called like Things I Hate in Romance Books, and it basically was just me talking about the tropes and habits of like romance writers that I really don't enjoy and when I'm reading romance. And surprisingly, a ton of my subscribers in the comments said that they hated Emily Henry's writing, which was so shocking to me. I guess she was guilty of some of the things I was saying, but for me, I love her characters, I love her plots, I love the romance, I love the smut scenes. Like I feel like she just does it in a way that the other girlies are not doing. But like I said, I know that not everyone feels that way about her, so I feel like some of her 1-star reviews will be funny to read, and she probably has more than like the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo did. Before we get into the 1-star reviews, I do want to read my own review so you can know how much I like Emily Henry. My review is 5 stars, and I said, Miss Henry is the moment, she is the movement, she is the blueprint. Her romances just do it for me. I liked this even more than Beach Read, which is saying something. It made me cry. It made me smile. It made me laugh. I loved it. And I think I'd still stand by that. I haven't read it since it came out, which I think was last year. Yeah, I think it was last year. But I loved it, obviously. But let's go ahead and read the lower like 1-star reviews, because you know, other people are not going to feel like Emily Henry is the blueprint, and I don't know if I'm ready for it, but it'll be interesting to say the least. Okay, so the first 1-star review I saw that made me laugh is someone said, ladies, if a man pulls a sad puppy face at you, run as fast as you can. I will say something about Emily Henry's writing is that she does tend to choose a facial expression that the male character does a lot, and I didn't even realize that about her books until someone in my comments in that video I was talking about said that. And I just recently read Book Lovers by Emily Henry, and I noticed that she kept talking about the main guy Charlie having like a pouty face, and I was like, huh, I guess Emily Henry does do that. But for me, I guess I just didn't mind that she does that in her writing. I can see how someone else would find that annoying, but for me, I like didn't really care. Okay, I just found another one that made me laugh, and they said, now that I finally finished, I can officially say the number of people they met on vacation can be counted on one hand. Carmen said, who convinced me this book was good? Get ready because I'm coming after you. It's so funny to me because I love this book so much. Like I just really enjoyed it. I really loved the characters. I loved the romance. I loved the writing. But to read so many people hating it like this, it's just, it goes to show that opinions really differ depending on who you are and what your own experiences are and what you like. The next book is one where I feel like the majority of people really loved this. It was really hyped up last year and ended up being one of my favorite thrillers, not only of last year, but of all time. And that is In My Dreams, A Hold the Knife by Ashley Winstead. I don't know what it was about this book, but it just hit for me. I loved the academic setting. I loved the characters that were like imperfect, kind of just like twisted bad people, and I thought that the mystery itself was done well, and I just overall loved this book. I have seen some booktubers saying that they don't really get the hype, they didn't like it, it was on their worst list of the year, but for me, I loved it. Anna said, absolute trash. Who on earth would submit themselves to read about this narcissistic, materialistic bunch of vapid jackasses? I think Goodreads' collective taste and my own are inversely proportional. And you know what, Anna? You're not wrong. The characters are narcissistic, materialistic, and vapid. Like, absolutely, that is true. I think for me, that's something that I liked about the book, because the characters are not meant to be likable, and I think that's either going to be a plus or a negative for you depending on the kind of reader you are. To be honest, I'm not even consistent with my opinion on that. Sometimes when I read about unlikable characters, I'm like, I want to punch everyone in the face, this book is a waste of time. And then other times I'm like, oh my god, flawless, complex, I love it so much. I obviously fell into the latter camp when I read this book, but I could see what Anna's saying. I feel like one critique I saw a lot is that people didn't like literally anyone in the book, but at the same time, that's kind of the point. So, but I get it, because there's times where I feel the same way and everybody's like, no, but that's the point. It's just, it depends on what kind of reader you are. So I totally get where you're coming from, Anna. You did make me laugh a little bit with the way that you wrote that, and I'm so sorry that your opinions are inversely proportional to everyone else on Goodreads. I sometimes feel that way, actually. Some of these reviews are really giving me a chuckle. I really like this review. Casey said, I mean, you could totally read this book, or you could pour a glass of boxed wine, skip dinner in favor of your kids' leftover chicken nuggets and a handful of neon-colored gummy worms, and half watch Pretty Little Liars on the couch until you fall asleep. I'm not here to judge. That's very funny. She didn't really tell me why she didn't like the book, but she obviously thought that that night she described was more worth it than reading this book. And you know, hats off to you, Casey, for painting that very vivid picture for me. My favorite review, though, is one by Kelly Marie, and she said, characters, childish. Plot, boring. I like how she really just got to the point. She was like, no, it's giving no. So this next book is one where I'm just truly asking for my feelings to be hurt, because this is one of my favorite books of all time, and that is The Diviners by Libba Bray. I absolutely love this book. I also got the most recent special edition of it. She's so beautiful. We love to see it. And this one is just like, it truly will hurt me if people don't like this, but that's okay. We have to persevere for content. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna read the 1-star reviews, and I might cry a little bit. So coming in very harshly, kind of hurting my feelings a little bit already, is someone saying, the heroine was intolerably stupid, annoying, attention-seeking, and inconsiderate. She grated on my nerves so badly I can barely bring myself to read on. I find Libba Bray's writing style for this book completely unreadable.
The woman was too stunned to speak.
I have a strong suspicion she read a reference guide to using slang during the flapper era and made it her personal goal to use as much speakeasy language as possible in every single spoken sentence. I disagree, obviously, because I literally have a tattoo for The Diviners. You know, I feel like Evie is unlikable on purpose. This is going back to what I've been saying. Sometimes the author writes the main character in an annoying way because the character is meant to be annoying. Like, Evie is immature and inconsiderate, especially in the first book. I think the point of The Diviners is, as the series goes on, she grows a lot as a person and she becomes someone that thinks about her friends, like, as you keep going. So while the first book really focuses very heavily on Evie, the rest of the books talk about the other characters as well. So I feel like as a cast, they're all very strong, but obviously each of them do have annoying things about them. Also, Evie is a teenager. Like, I think she's like 17 years old when the book takes place. And so I don't know about you, but I was really annoying when I was 17. Again, I'm not saying that you have to like this book or that what she's saying is invalid, because I totally get it. Evie is a little bit of a bitch in the first book, but it hurts a little bit to hear her say that. Okay.
Please ignore the fact I only have one press-on nail here.
This next review is by someone called Melissa Hart Dog / Wolf Lover Hart Martin. She said, F this book. I'm tired of books killing dogs, cats, etc. How would you like it if your animal was being gutted alive? Like I said, F this book and books like it, because I'm tired of it. And don't make no smart ass comments on my review. You know what? Melissa has strong beliefs about animal cruelty and she's sticking to it, and I respect that. I actually don't even remember a pet getting killed in this book, but it probably did happen at the beginning because Naughty John is kind of a psycho killer, and I totally get it. And listen, I've recently been reading more horror novels, and in horror novels they love to kill a dog. They love to like string up a dog, like cut open a dog. They do a bunch of like really fucked up stuff to dogs, and it always makes me so sad. I don't really like animal violence, but in my opinion, when a pet gets killed in this book, it probably wasn't that gory because it is a YA book, but I totally get it. Listen, Melissa does not want any violence against pets. Like, F this book because of pets, okay? How would you like it? Okay, I want to read this next review because she just used a lot of big words and I think it's kind of funny. She said DNF at page 78. Well, first of all, if you only got to page 78, I don't think you should be reviewing this, but that's neither here nor there. I get it, it's fine. I just personally have a rule that if I don't read over half the book, I'm not allowed to rate it, and I put it on my DNF list without a rating, but it's fine, we all do things differently. This was terrible. The protagonist was vacuous, and I wanted to slap her the entire time I was reading it. I fell asleep at a major adventure scene. The villain is fascinatingly dull. He's so nice that I could have mistaken him for any of the other pervs in this book. Roya, are we being serious? Did we read the same book? Naughty John is not nice. He fucking murders people and it's scary. We read a different book. What do you mean all the other pervs in this book? Who else is a perv besides Naughty John? I didn't read enough to know what his alibi was. Yeah, because you only read 78 pages. Come on, Roya. But I'm sure it would have been just as platitudinous, yes, I waited weeks to use that word, as the rest of this book. Oh yeah, all of the characters are super shady. Roya, you only read 78 pages. What do you mean all the characters are shady? You don't actually know anything about this book. What are you saying? I just feel like Roya wanted to use some big words and show off because she didn't like this book. But in my humble opinion, I feel like she did not read enough of this book to say what she said. Half of us don't even know what those words mean, and we had to look them up, and we had to look up how to pronounce them so we didn't sound dumb when we read them. I'm not saying it was me, but it could have been someone that you know. Again, not saying it's me. Okay, so this final book is an all-time favorite of mine. I've loved it since I was a child. I've read it so many times. It's just flawless to me. And that is Enchanted by Gail, Carson, Levine. I even have the original cover book. I thrifted this because I love it. It just brings up all the good feelings for me because I have read this so many times. I just love this book so much. I loved it as a child. It's so good. And so it's kind of a random pick for me to put in this video because, like, I don't know, like, not many people may think of this book very often. I'm sure you read it as a kid and maybe you haven't read it since, but I have strong feelings about this, so I thought it'd be funny to go and read the 1-star reviews for this. So first off, we have Jessica, who says, I remember reading this book in middle school and I didn't like it at all. I don't quite remember why I didn't like it. I think it had something to do with the obedience thing. So Jessica, you're telling me that you came on Goodreads and you reviewed this when you haven't read it since you were literally like a child? Is that what we're saying here? Like, you haven't read it in many years and you thought, huh, gotta really fill my Goodreads shelf, so let me just give it a bad review. I don't care if you didn't like it when you were fucking 12. Don't come on here and review it unless you read it recently, okay? Next up we have Jaylene, and she said, never in 1,000,000 years did I ever think I would ever be saying this, but truly and honestly, I believe the movie was way better. And I hate saying this, I hate writing this, and it pains me to the core, but hands down, the movie was better. Never did I read a book that came second place to the movie, and it pains me so much. You know what, Jaylene? Straight to jail, because that movie is trash. If you are an OG Enchanted fan and you read the book before you saw the movie, you're going to hate the Anne Hathaway movie. Like, it's just a fact. Like, the movie, like, they turned it kind of like into a musical at the end, and they changed the plot a whole bunch, and it didn't read like the book at all. I just don't understand why they always do that. Why do you take a book and then when you convert it into a film or TV series, you just pervert it? Like, why? And you know what, Jaylene? Straight to jail because you're wrong. The final review that I want to read is from Angelina BB7. They said, this book was not very entertaining, but I feel it would be better for people who like fantasy. I'm not a very big fan of fantasy, but I decided to give this book a chance. I was not impressed, but of course, this is coming from a realistic fiction lover. I would definitely recommend this book to anyone who likes fantasy. I gave this book 1 star because I, as I said, am not a fan of fantasy. This book reminds me of Cinderella, only because of the fantasy vibe. Angelina BB7. Why would you read this book if you don't like fantasy? It's literally a fantasy book. Like, make it make sense. This book reminds me of Cinderella only because of the fantasy vibe. No, Angelina BB, it's actually because it is a Cinderella retelling. That's why it reminds you of Cinderella. Like, it's literally called Enchanted, and she has like a stepmother that like makes her do all the chores. Like, it's literally a retelling of Cinderella with a twist. That review just, I feel like that's a great way to end this video because it just Makes me laugh so hard. Anyway, that brings me to the end of this video. Let me know down below if you're with me or if you're with the reviewers. Did you hate these books? Did you love these books? I also think it'd be fun if I did another version of this video where I read 5-star reviews of books that I absolutely hate, because it's just fun to like flip that on its head. Also, again, no disrespect to anyone who left these reviews. I thought they were funny, and I obviously disagreed with you, but that's the lovely thing about reading and opinions. We just all have different opinions, and that is the world of booktube. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching. You're all beautiful. Have a nice day.